Hey everyone, thanks for watching this. If you chose to watch it, I appreciate it. Um, I've enjoyed this class and I'm glad to present what I'm going to present right now. I work with a guy. Uh, I'm a truck driver for a local lumber company that makes trusses. So there's a group of us that especially deal with oversized loads. Um, and so I work with this guy, and for the sake of our conversation, I'm calling him Jamie. I'm trying to protect any anonymity that I can. Um, but he is African American in his mid 50s. Grew up east of Atlanta, um, and me and him have often talked about race and politics, and he's one of those guys that's very open about what he thinks and what political party he's part of. And, if he disagrees with something, he's going to tell you he disagrees with it. And I'm usually the type of guy that um, I can hear what somebody thinks. And, you know, the best way to put it is like the only hill I'm going to die on is that Jesus Christ is Lord of all. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care. Like, all that stuff is relative. Um, but he's one of those guys, so we have a lot of good conversations. And so with this class, I was like, well, I can have an interview with him. So I asked him at the time. Juneteenth was that week, and so I asked him, as an African American male living, especially in the South, and somebody that often discusses race and makes racial jokes and things like that, that's very comfortable with talking about it. I asked him what he thinks about Juneteenth. Like, what does it mean for him? Um, and so, first of all, Juneteenth, if you don't know, Juneteenth is a blend of the word June and 19th. It's commemorating when slavery was actually put an end to. Um, and if you don't know, like the whole Emancipation Proclamation thing 2 years before Juneteenth, fun fact, freed zero slaves. Um, and there's a whole interesting history about how the Emancipation Proclamation was actually a work of propaganda, and Lincoln was a genius at stuff. And so, that being said, uh, Juneteenth is a celebration of June 19th, 1965, when the Union troops arrived in Galveston and freed the last known slaves, because the war ended months before, and this was the last group of slaves that were being held in America. Um, and so this is what's being celebrated. So I asked him several questions, um, but the one question that stood out to me is a simple one. I asked him, what does Juneteenth mean to him? You know, um, because he also told me he's not the kind of guy that's like, well, I'm not going to celebrate 4th of July because blah blah. Because I have met those guys, but he's like, no, like, but when I asked him, he said that, and you can see it on the screen, is he freedom. That's what Juneteenth means to him. And when I asked him to explain, he really started to explain that while 4th of July, started the nation that would eventually free the slaves, if he was born during that time, he would not be free. It wasn't until Juneteenth that he would be free. Um, and so as we kind of and we talked about he talked about some discrimination and stuff that he had grown up with, and I didn't add a lot of that because once again I'm trying to protect his anonymity, and it's his story to tell, it's not mine. Um, but as I compared and contrasted this, I realized I can relate to many parts of Jamie's experience. Um, he talks a little bit about like being profiled, being pulled over, or being whatever because he fit a description. I grew up in Barrow County, Georgia, and my family and my last name have a very negative connotation in that area. And from the time I got my license, I'm not that old. There are things that my grandfather did that are heinous that are still talked about, whatever. Um, and I've gotten pulled over because my last name was Burt. So I can almost relate, but at the same time, I have never walked past somewhere and someone look at me because of the color of my skin and think that I've done something wrong. So there's that experience I can't really relate to. The closest thing I can relate to it is that we live in a society today that has demonized being a man, and as a man that has a buzz cut, has a beard, most of the time is wearing boots and Carhartt, I feel the need in our society to be overly kind and polite and to not try to come across as creepy. If I'm just being honest with you. Um, and part of that is a society, part of that's just I have a beautiful wife, I have three sisters, I have a daughter, and I know what their experiences are. And I'm trying my best to that other women don't have that experience. But all that being said, I can relate to some of the things Jamie talked about, and I can't, and I can't relate to some other things. And one of the things one of the things I learned, I got done with this interview and I asked myself this question: do I have as good a reason to celebrate Independence Day as Jamie does to celebrate Juneteenth? And if I'm being honest, when I came into this interview, um, I had some preconceived notions about Juneteenth. I've heard some of the more outspoken, to be honest, bitter talking people that talk about Juneteenth. And Jamie's not one of these people. But I asked myself this question, and the fact is, no. I don't have as much. Because if you really break it down, I am a white land owning male. If America never became its own country and the Revolutionary War never happened, I would still be able to have a job, be able to get married, be able to buy land, be able to start a business. I would still have all these freedoms. If Juneteenth never happened, Jamie would not have any freedom. He wouldn't have the freedom to be a person, to be considered human, if Juneteenth never happened. All, if you really break it down, all the Revolutionary War did for me was change who I paid taxes to. Because the reason that we got out, the reason that the Revolutionary War happened was because taxation without representation. And what's happening now? I am being taxed and I do not feel represented. It doesn't change anything for me. But Juneteenth changed everything for the African descendants that live in the United States, people of color in the United States. So yeah, this interview really changed my mind. I really learned a lot. I appreciate his time and I appreciate your time for watching this.